The silk dress tore with a sickening screech as Lady Vesper's hands wrenched the fabric apart. Amina gasped, reaching out for the shimmering blue scrap, but it was too late. "This was my mother's," Amina cried, her voice cracking as she knelt in the dirt of the courtyard. Vesper tossed the ruined silk into the mud and wiped her hands as if she'd touched something diseased. "Your mother was a peasant who happened to have a pretty foot, Amina. This rag is exactly where it belongs. Now, get up. The herald is at the gate, and I won't have you looking like a gutter rat in front of the king's men." Amina's fingers trembled as she touched the wet silk. "You had no right." This was all I had left of her. Vesper stepped forward, her heavy boot pinning Amina's hand to the ground. "I have every right. I am the mistress of this house, and you are a charity case. If you say another word, I'll ensure you spend the night in the well." Cora, Amina's stepsister, leaned over the balcony above, laughing as she fanned herself. "Why are you crying, Amina? It's not like you'd ever fit into a dress like that. You have the grace of a water buffalo." Amina looked up, her eyes burning. "I can dance better than you ever will, Cora. Mother taught me the basics before she passed." Cora's laughter stopped abruptly. She marched down the stairs, her face turning a deep shade of crimson. "The basics? You can barely walk without tripping over your own shadow." "Mama, did you hear her? She thinks she can dance." Vesper laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "She can dream, Cora. It's the only thing that's free in this world." The heavy iron gates groaned open, and a man in gold-stitched livery rode in, unfurling a scroll. "By order of Prince Julian. A grand gala shall be held at the moon-shattered palace. All maidens are summoned to perform. The prince seeks the one who knows the dance of the Ancestral Flame. The winner shall be his bride and the future queen." Amina felt a jolt of electricity go through her. The Ancestral Flame, that was the dance her mother used to whisper about at night. Vesper snatched the scroll from the herald's hand before he could even finish. "My daughter Cora will be there. She is the finest dancer in the province." The herald looked at Cora, then at Amina, who was still kneeling in the mud. "All maidens are invited, my lady." The prince was very specific. Vesper sneered, "This one is a servant. She stays." Once the herald departed, Vesper turned on Amina with a predatory glint in her eyes. "If I see you anywhere near the palace, I will make sure you never walk again. Do you understand me?" Amina stood up, wiping the mud from her knees. "The prince invited everyone. You can't stop the law." Vesper slapped her so hard Amina's head snapped to the side. "I am the law in this house. Cora, go to your room and practice. Amina, go to the cellar. There are 50 bushels of potatoes that need peeling before sundown. If you aren't finished, you don't eat." Amina watched them walk away, her heart hammering against her ribs. She retreated to the dark, damp cellar, the smell of earth and rot filling her lungs. "I'm sorry, Mother," she whispered to the shadows. "I can't do it. I'm stuck here." If you are enjoying this story and want to see Amina get her revenge, make sure to hit that like button right now and subscribe so you don't miss the next part of our journey. The cellar air suddenly grew unnaturally warm. A faint, glowing mist began to seep from the cracks in the stone floor. Amina backed away, her heart racing. "Who's there?" she demanded, grabbing a rusted knife. The mist coalesced, spinning faster and faster until the silhouette of a woman appeared. She was radiant, draped in a gown of silver light that seemed to flicker like a candle. "Mother!" Amina breathed, dropping the knife. The spirit didn't speak with words, but Amina felt a voice in her mind. "The flame does not die, my child. It only waits for the wind." The spirit began to move, her feet barely touching the dusty floor. It was a dance Amina recognized, the beginning of the Ancestral Flame. "They won't let me go," Amina cried. Vesper locked the doors. The spirit paused, pointing toward Amina's heart. The doors of the house are nothing. The doors of your soul are what matter. Dance with me. Amina took a tentative step, mimicking the fluid arc of her mother's arm. She stumbled immediately, her heavy work boots catching on a loose stone. I can't do it, mother. My legs are made of lead, not light, she gasped, the cold dampness of the cellar seeping into her bones. The spirit didn't slow down, she spun faster, her translucent skirts trailing starlight across the dirt. Amina felt a sudden warmth wrap around her ankles, a phantom pressure guiding her feet. She tried again, this time ignoring the weight of her boots. She slid across the floor, her body beginning to remember the rhythm she had watched from the shadows as a child. The heavy wooden door at the top of the stairs slammed against the wall, and Amina froze. What is that noise? Vesper's voice shrieked, followed by the heavy thud of her footsteps descending. Amina scrambled back toward the pile of potatoes, grabbing a paring knife just as Vesper's candlelight cut through the dark. I heard thumping, Amina. Are you trying to escape? Vesper stood at the bottom of the stairs, her eyes narrowed as she scanned the room. The spirit had vanished, leaving only a lingering scent of jasmine. I dropped a crate, stepmother, Amina said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The wood was slick. Vesper stepped closer, leaning in until Amina could smell the sour wine on her breath. You're sweating. And your heart is beating like a trapped rabbit. You weren't just dropping crates. Cora appeared behind her mother, clutching a silk ribbon. She was dancing, Mama. I heard the rhythm. She thinks she can learn the flame in a cellar. Cora stepped forward and kicked a basket of peeled potatoes, sending them rolling into the filth. Look at her, trying to be elegant while she smells like rot. Amina stood her ground, looking Cora directly in the eyes. The prince is looking for a soul that can dance, Cora, not a dress that can move. You haven't practiced a single step since the herald left. Cora's face twisted in rage. She lunged forward, grabbing Amina's hair. How dare you speak to me? I am the one who will wear the crown. You will be lucky if I let you serve my tea. Vesper didn't stop her, she watched with a cold smile. Let her go, Cora. She's not worth the effort of a bruise. Vesper turned back to Amina, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper. If I hear another sound from this cellar that isn't the sound of a knife hitting a potato, I will lock you in the iron chest in the barn. Do you understand? Amina waited until the bolt clicked shut and the footsteps faded into the distance. She sank to her knees, her scalp stinging from where Cora had pulled. It's no use, she whispered to the empty air. They'll never let me out. Even if I learn it, I'll die in this dark hole. The silver light returned, brighter than before. The spirit reached out, her hand passing through Amina's shoulder like a warm breeze. Amina felt a surge of defiance. You're right. They only have power if I give it to them. She stood up, kicking her heavy boots off and standing barefoot on the cold earth. Show me the next part. Show me the flicker step. For hours, the cellar was transformed into a ballroom of shadows. The spirit taught Amina how to spin until the world was a blur of grey and silver. She taught her how to leap and hold her breath so she seemed to float at the apex of the jump. Is this why you loved it, mother? Amina asked during a brief pause. Because for a moment, the ground doesn't own you. The spirit nodded, her expression one of immense pride and sorrow. The prince knows the difference between a puppet and a flame, the feeling echoed in Amina's mind. You must be the fire. As the sun began to rise, casting a weak orange light through the high cellar window, Amina's body ached in ways she had never felt. But she wasn't tired. She felt electric. The door opened again, but this time it was only Cora, looking frantic. Amina, get up. My dress is too tight, and the seamstress won't be here for hours. You have to fix it. Amina didn't move from her corner. Fix it yourself, Cora. I have 20 bushels left to peel. Cora marched over, her face red. You do as I say, or I'll tell Mama you stole her jewelry. Amina stood up slowly, her new grace making her seem taller, more imposing. Go ahead and tell her. But if I don't fix that dress, you'll look like a stuffed sausage in front of the prince. Is that what you want? Cora hesitated, her lip trembling. Just come upstairs. Now. Amina smiled, a sharp, dangerous expression. I'll come. But only if you bring me a pair of your old silk slippers. The ones you said were too tight. Cora scoffed, what for? You have nowhere to go. Amina shrugged, picking up a potato. Maybe I just want to feel like a human being for 5 minutes. Shoes for the dress, Cora. Take it or leave it. If you're rooting for Amina to outsmart her cruel family, leave a comment with the word revenge below and don't forget to subscribe for the grand finale. Cora threw the silk slippers at Amina's feet with a look of pure disgust. There. Take them. They're gaudy anyway, and they pinch my toes. Now, get to work on these bodies. Amina picked up the slippers, her fingers brushing the fine fabric. They were stained at the heels, but the soles were still strong. She spent the afternoon stitching Cora into a dress of violent violet, her needles flying with a precision that made Cora wince. Careful, you clumsy idiot. Cora snapped as a pin pricked her side. Amina leaned in, her voice a low, steady hum. If you breathe out instead of in, it wouldn't prick you, Cora. You're holding yourself too stiff. A dancer needs to be like water. Cora looked at her in the mirror, her eyes widening. Since when did you become an expert on anything? You're a servant. Amina didn't blink. I'm the one making you look like a princess. Maybe you should listen. Lady Vesper walked into the room, her eyes darting between the two girls. She sensed the shift in the air, the way Amina stood with her shoulders back and her chin tilted. What are you two whispering about? Vesper demanded, her hand resting on the hilt of her riding crop. Nothing, Mama, Cora said quickly. Amina was just being strange again. Vesper walked over to Amina, circling her like a wolf. Strange is a dangerous word in this house, Amina. I've noticed you haven't been crying lately. You haven't been begging for mercy when I give you extra chores. Why is that? Amina kept her eyes on the floor, but her voice was cold. Maybe I've just run out of tears, stepmother. Or maybe I realized they don't change anything. Vesper grabbed Amina's jaw, forcing her to look up. Confidence looks like arrogance on a girl like you. Don't forget who fed you when your father died. Don't forget who keeps you from the streets. Amina gritted her teeth. I haven't forgotten a single thing you've done for me, Vesper. Not one. The evening of the gala arrived with a flurry of activity. The house was filled with the scent of burnt hair and expensive powders. Amina. Where is my shawl? Cora screamed from the hallway. Amina, fetch the carriage lanterns. Vesper yelled from the courtyard. Amina moved through the house with a quiet, little efficiency. She helped them into the carriage, her face a mask of obedience. As Vesper climbed in, she turned back to Amina, a cruel smirk on her lips. I've decided to be extra cautious tonight. I know how much you enjoy the fresh air of the cellar. Vesper pulled a heavy iron key from her belt. Cora, dear, help me. Together, they pushed a massive oak wardrobe in front of the cellar door, blocking the only exit. There, Vesper said, dusting off her hands. Now you can dance all night, and no one will have to see your pathetic face. We'll be back when Cora is a queen. The carriage rattled away, leaving the house in a deafening silence. Amina stood at the bottom of the cellar stairs, staring at the blocked door. Mother, she whispered, her voice trembling. Are you there? The silver light didn't appear. The jasmine scent was gone. The cellar felt colder and darker than it ever had. Amina threw her weight against the door, but the wardrobe didn't budge. "I can't get out," she screamed, her fist pounding against the wood until her knuckles bled. "Everything you taught me, it's for nothing." She sank to the floor, the silk slippers clutched to her chest. She felt the weight of years of abuse pressing down on her. Vesper had won. The prince would marry a girl who hated him for his crown, and Amina would rot in a hole. Suddenly, a faint tapping sounded from the high, narrow window at the street level. Amina looked up, her eyes stinging with tears. A small, soot-covered face peered through the bars. It was Pip, the neighbor's stable boy whom Amina had often snuck scraps of bread. "Amina, are you in there?" he whispered. Amina scrambled up a stack of crates. "Pip." Vesper locked me in. She blocked the door with the wardrobe. Pip looked around nervously. "I saw them leave. They looked like demons in silk, they did. I can't move that wardrobe, Amina, but I can fetch the blacksmith's crowbar." "Hold on." Amina waited in the dark, her heart hammering a rhythm against her ribs. 10 minutes later, she heard the sound of metal grinding against stone. Pip was prying at the window bars. "Push, Amina. Push with everything you've got." Amina didn't just push. She centered herself, feeling the heat the spirit had planted in her core. She used her legs, her back, and her soul. With a scream of effort, the rusted bars gave way, snapping outward. Amina hauled herself up, her skin scraping against the stone, and tumbled out into the mud of the street. Pip stood back, gasping. "You look like a ghost, Amina." She stood up, shaking the dirt from her hair. She wasn't wearing a gown. She was wearing her tattered shift and the stolen silk slippers. "I don't have time to look like a girl, Pip. I have to be the flame." She turned and began to run toward the palace, her feet moving with a speed that defied the wind. If you want to see Amina crash the ball and show the prince what true magic looks like, make sure you are subscribed and have that bell icon on. We are heading into the final act. Comment dance if you believe in her. The palace guards lunged for her, their pikes clashing together to block the grand entrance. Amina didn't stop. She ducked beneath their arms, her body moving with a fluid grace that left them grasping at thin air. "Halt, girl. You're half naked and covered in soot," the captain of the guard roared, reaching for her shoulder. Amina spun, her silk slippers skidding on the marble, and looked him dead in the eye. "I am the daughter of the woman who first danced the ancestral flame in this very hall," she said, her voice ringing like a silver bell. "Would you be the one to tell the prince he must marry a fraud because the truth was wearing rags?" The captain hesitated, his gaze falling on the way she stood, balanced, poised, and radiating a heat that shouldn't have been there. He stepped back, slowly lowering his pike. "Go," he whispered. "Before the king sees my mercy." Amina burst through the towering oak doors into a sea of gold, perfume, and judgmental whispers. The music was a slow, rhythmic thrumming of drums and harps. In the center of the floor, Cora was struggling. She was red-faced, her violet dress soaked in sweat as she tried to mimic the movements of a flame. She looked less like a fire and more like a bird with a broken wing. Prince Julian sat on his throne, his chin resting on his hand, his eyes glazed with a boredom that bordered on despair. "Is this the best the province has to offer?" he asked, his voice echoing through the silent hall. "Is there no one who knows the heart of the fire?" "She is a fraud." Amina's voice cut through the music like a blade. The crowd parted as she walked toward the center of the floor. Vesper, standing near the throne, turned pale as a ghost. "Amina! You wretched girl!" Vesper screamed, rushing forward to grab her. "Guards! Throw this beggar into the street. She's escaped from an asylum." Amina didn't flinch as Vesper reached for her. She simply pivoted, a movement so sharp and elegant that Vesper tripped over her own heavy skirts and went sprawling onto the floor. The only asylum I've escaped is your house, stepmother, Amina said, her voice loud enough for the prince to hear. The prince stood up, his eyes locking onto Amina's soot-streaked face. You claim to know the dance, girl? He asked, stepping down from the dais. I know the dance because it is in my blood, Amina replied, her gaze never wavering. My mother died with the rhythm in her heart, and she spent every night this week making sure I didn't forget it. Cora scrambled to her feet, clutching her torn bodice. She's lying, Julian. She's a kitchen maid. She spends her days peeling potatoes and sleeping in the dirt. The prince ignored her, walking until he was inches from Amina. Then show me, he whispered. Show me the fire that burns without consuming. Amina closed her eyes. She didn't look for the spirit. She didn't listen for the jasmine scent. She simply breathed. The drummer began a slow, steady beat, the heartbeat of the earth. Amina's first movement was a slow unfurling, her arms rising like smoke from a dying ember. The room went silent. Even Vesper stayed on the floor, mesmerized. As the tempo increased, Amina began to spin. She wasn't just a girl in a shift anymore, she was a whirlwind of motion. The light of the chandeliers seemed to bend toward her, wrapping around her like a gown of pure gold. She performed the flicker step, then the leap of the moon's end, hanging in the air for a heartbeat that made the king gasp. When she landed, she was in the center of the floor, her hand outstretched toward the prince. It's her, the prince breathed, his face illuminated with a joy that had been missing for years. The movement of the silent flame. I haven't seen it since the queen passed. He reached out and took Amina's hand. Her skin was warm, humming with the energy of the dance. Vesper scrambled up, her face twisted in a mask of desperation. No. This is a trick. She's used witchcraft. She's a servant, Julian. You can't marry a servant. The prince turned to Vesper, his eyes turning cold and hard as flint. She is no servant. She is the only woman in this room with a soul. Guards, take this woman and her daughter to the iron gates. They are banished from this province for the deception and the cruelty they have shown a daughter of the flame. Vesper and Cora were dragged away, their screams echoing through the palace until they were silenced by the heavy doors. The prince turned back to Amina, pulling her closer. I don't even know your name, he said softly. Amina, she replied, her heart finally finding peace. My name is Amina, and I am my mother's daughter. As the music began again, a joyous, soaring melody, Amina saw a shimmer near the balcony. Her mother stood there, no longer a ghost of silver, but a woman of light, smiling with a pride that transcended the veil of death. She blew a kiss to her daughter and faded into the starlight. Amina leaned into the prince as they began their first dance as a future king and queen, the fire finally belonging to her. Thank you so much for following Amina's journey from the dark cellar to the palace lights. If you love this story of ancestral magic and justice, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below telling us, what secret talent would you want your ancestors to teach you? See you in the next story.